My name is Joe Inslee, and welcome back to Characters of the Bible, Homegirl edition, and today we get to talk about Bathsheba. You might have noticed that I'm wearing my Pekahiah shirt today. This comes from my series on Monday's Monarch when we covered a crazy little king called Pekahiah. Now, my YouTube ministry is something that I do as a ministry. I want to teach the Bible, I want to reach people, but I also think it's important for you to know I'm not independently wealthy. So please consider supporting my channel. You can always comment, like, and subscribe and share it with your friends. That's a great way to support me. But you can also jump onto my Patreon account. You could give me $2 a month. $2 a month, and that would help this ministry go forward. And I'm not going to tell you that you need to attach your seed to my anointing so that you too can reap the blessings. Because I'm not a prosperity gospel heretic. But I would love it if you would consider supporting my ministry either by checking out my Patreon account or by getting one of these dope shirts and wearing it, and then you get to tell your friends all about Pekahiah. Enough about that. Let's talk about Bathsheba. The story of Bathsheba is found in 2 Samuel chapter 11. And I need to get real serious with you for just a minute because Bathsheba is one of these characters that she's kind of passed over in the Bible. We all know about David and Bathsheba. We know that David saw a woman bathing on a roof and then they made a song about him. You saw her bathing on the roof, her beauty in the moonlight overthrew you. Unfortunately, this is one of the main sins that defines David's reign over the children of Israel. But I want you to understand something. Nehemiah has to go to a king, and he's nervous to have a frown on his face, because if he was not smiling, the king would have killed him. Esther goes to a king, and if he doesn't raise his scepter the right way, she gets beheaded. So this isn't a great time to deal with kings. I think people forget that if David saw a woman who was taking a bath, and he sent messengers and said, "You need to come be with me," this is not something that was really optional for Bathsheba. And although this is a little bit dark, we need to just talk about how Bathsheba was the victim of sexual assault. And that's what happened to her. It wasn't fair and it wasn't okay. And for all we know, she was happily married to this guy named Uriah. He goes off to war, fighting in the king's army. The king summons her to his palace, and she has a choice. Sleep with the king or die. It just goes to show you that not every time is everything hunky-dory. God deals with a lot of messes in the Bible, and he sees human messes that are no different or no worse than the messes that we have in the 21st century. When I think about this from the recovery perspective, it gets even worse because then Bathsheba's husband is killed by her attacker. The guy that forced her to sleep with him goes out and kills her husband. It's not a good scenario at all. She ends up marrying David because she gets pregnant, but then because of punishment for David's sin, the first child of their love dies. And we see this as David's punishment, and David's grieved over it, but think about the poor mother that got brought into this scenario, had a child, and the child died as a result of the sin. But God cares about everyone, even when bad things happen. And some of the parts about Bathsheba's story I think we tend to forget, and I want to just highlight those. The first one is Bathsheba's next son was Solomon. And although David was not allowed to go build the temple for God, God said, "Solomon, your son, will build my temple." So at least we know she was well taken care of, as Solomon is known to be one of the wealthiest kings that ever lived. But Bathsheba has an even higher honor. She is one of 4 women noted in the lineage of Christ in the first chapter of Matthew. Now, why that's significant? First of all, is there's not a lot of women noted in the line of Christ. There's only 4 of them. But Bathsheba isn't mentioned as Bathsheba in this genealogy. She's mentioned as Uriah's wife. And I don't think that was to put down women. I don't think that's a sign of patriarchal times and they just ignore women. I think that God had Bathsheba written down in that lineage as Uriah's wife as a way to just continually confirm that she was Uriah's wife. What happened to her was wrong. God took the mess and he did something awesome. She became in the line of Christ to come down to earth. But it was never forgotten that she was Uriah's wife, and she was wronged, and she was taken advantage of. I don't know how many of you have been wronged and taken advantage of. Certainly, hopefully not, is in such a severe way as Bathsheba was. But let me just encourage you to say that when those things happen, it's not like God looks away or he forgets or he can't do anything about it. God knows he can bring glory to himself, and he can redeem the most fallen, messy situation, just like he did for Bathsheba.